China, a country famously known for its long history of gender equality. That's why our women keep their maiden names after marriage, and why we only had one female emperor in our entire history. Anyway, today, let's talk about this bad bitch, because she's a badass, and she's kind of a bitch. Her name is Zetian, but to most of you, she's probably known as Who? Which is also the last name of my schizophrenic neighbor. In 624, Zetian was born to an aristocratic family in the Tang Dynasty, the most powerful Chinese dynasty in history. When she was very young, she was not particularly old, and the emperor at the time heard about how beautiful she was, so he summoned her into the palace to be his girlfriend, concubine. This is very inappropriate, because first, she couldn't say no, and second, as I said, Wu was still very young. Thinking about what might befall her young daughter, Wu's mom was devastated. But Wu simply said, "Stop crying like a girl, Mom. I might achieve great things by serving our beloved emperor." Damn, that's badass. And her badassery soon impressed the emperor, who once got a strong horse that he struggled to tame. Wu, who was accompanying him, said, "Your Majesty, I only need 3 things to tame this animal. First, I'll need an iron whip, which I'll use to whip his ass. If it doesn't listen, I'll need an iron stick, which I'll use to hit his head. If it still doesn't listen, I'll need an iron dagger, which I'll use to slit his throat." The emperor was like, "Damn girl, you're so violent," and praised her for her brutality. And that's pretty much the only memorable thing that happened between her and the emperor, because in her 12 years as his concubine, she never once got pregnant. This is bad, because in the Tang Dynasty, when an emperor died, his childless concubines would be sent to the imperial temple to become a Buddhist nun, who are required to shave their heads and have these weird dots on their heads. But Wu, being the calculating, ambitious badass she was, refused to accept this fate, so she slept with the crown prince. Actually, I made that up. But history shows she greatly pleased the crown prince when he was summoned to the palace to attend to his gravely ill father. After that, Wu and the prince became very close. When Wu was 25, the emperor dropped dead, and she was sent to the imperial temple and had her head shaved. But she didn't stay there for long, because a few months later, the crown prince, who had become the new emperor, went to the temple to pray, where he accidentally came across Wu, who was bald at the time by the way, and reconnected with her. The reconnection was very successful, because Wu got pregnant not long after. The emperor then brought her back to the palace and made her his new concubine. Empress Wang, the emperor's wife, welcomed this development, thinking she could use Wu to crush her romantic rival, concubine Xiao, who was getting all the emperor's favors before Wu arrived. Well, long story short, Wu crushed both the concubine and the empress and convinced the emperor to strip them of their titles and imprison them in a tiny room in the far corner of the palace. Later, Wu ordered them to be beaten 100 times on their butts with a giant wooden staff. And it's not as funny as it sounds, because this punishment typically strips a significant chunk of flesh off the victim's body. Then, Wu ordered the poor woman's hands and feet chopped off and had them drowned in a giant wine jar. To be fair, Wu's brutality here was most likely exaggerated, because historians in ancient China weren't so thrilled about a woman becoming emperor, but it is certain that Wu did kill her 2 romantic rivals. In 655, Wu, at 31, was made the new empress. She quickly got involved in the state affairs and convinced her husband to give up more and more power. She cleverly summoned a group of scholars to write a series of books, including ones on why women should be involved in politics, and secretly ordered them to assist her in running the country, so she could further sideline those who objected to her role in politics. Her increasing power and ambition eventually pitted her against her own sons. First, it was the crown prince, her eldest. In 675, after suffering from strokes for years, the emperor intended to pass the throne to the crown prince early. But a few months later, the prince mysteriously died at only 23 years old. Rumors said Wu poisoned him because she was afraid of losing power, and the prince greatly offended Wu when he petitioned the emperor to release the imprisoned daughters of former Empress Wang and concubine Xiao, the romantic rivals Wu had killed. But again, these were rumors. However, what Wu did to her second son, who became the new crown prince, was well documented. First, she accused him of treason and demoted him to a commoner. Then, 1 year after the emperor died, Wu ordered the poor dude to commit suicide. He was only 31 at the time. Beginning in 683, Wu ruled the country as the Empress Dowager with an iron fist. She propped up her third son as the emperor, who wanted to name his father-in-law as the prime minister, so as to take some power back from his mom. When Wu said no, the third son said, "I'm the emperor. I can give my father-in-law the whole world if I want it." And Wu was like, "Stupid kid, go sit in the corner," and deported him to a far-off province. At this point, Wu had been running China for 24 years, and although she's a very brutal person, she was a great ruler. She broke up the monopoly that noble houses had on politics and promoted the imperial exam system so the common people could have a fair chance. She reduced taxes and improved the economy, which helped grow the population. She also won several wars against the nomadic tribes and recovered lost territories. More importantly, she was open to constructive criticism, most of the time at least, and often invited the common people to visit her palace. After these great achievements, Wu decided it was time for her to officially become the emperor. But as it turned out, this pissed off a lot of people, because despite Wu's achievements, she was seen by many as a usurper of the power that rightfully belonged to her sons. And to be fair, she did kill her second son, deport her third son, and was now ruling in the name of her fourth son, who she totally treated like a puppet. In 684, a major rebellion broke out. The general who led the rebellion wrote a proclamation, which goes something like this. "The usurper Wu Zetian is a hoe. She seduced the late emperor when she was still a concubine of the late emperor. That's incest. Now she's old. She likes to conduct promiscuous activities in the palace. She's jealous as a cat, cunning as a fox, evil as a snake, and cruel as a jackal. She killed her sisters, her brothers, her mother, the emperor, and pretty much everyone. She's hated by gods and men, heaven and earth." Apparently, when Wu saw this proclamation, she was like, that's intense, and then crushed the rebellion. However, while most allegations made in the proclamation were total nonsense, one was true, the part about Wu's promiscuous activities, in case you're wondering. Because, sometimes you have an itch in your pants and you want someone to scratch it. After her husband died, Wu began to have boyfriends, because let's be fair, women have needs too. But Wu's needs were particularly strong, especially considering she was already 60. She set up a crane control office in the palace to help her collect handsome birds across the country, and she often went there to play with the birds she collected. Her first bird was a tall and muscular street merchant called Fang. In the beginning, he was dating a maid of a princess. When the princess found out, she was like, "Damn, you so fine, boo," and bathed with Fang and kept him for a few days. The princess then sent Fang to Wu to curry favor, and Wu immediately took a liking to the young lad and often exercised with him. Fang was 38 years younger than her, by the way. At first, Wu was quite shy about their affair, so she asked Fang to shave his head and become a monk. That way, they could continue their exercise under the guise of discussing Buddhism, which is totally against the precepts of Buddhist monks, and is not the discussing Buddhism part. But Fang wasn't too happy with this arrangement, because he developed a weird hobby of forcing random strangers in the street to shave their heads and become monks in his temple, while also beating the hell out of anyone who got in his way. And since he was Wu's boyfriend, which was an open secret, nobody dared say anything. However, as time went by, Wu grew bored of him and began to favor a handsome doctor. This made Fang so jealous that he burned down 2 of Wu's favorite temples, and Wu ordered him strangled to death by a group of strong women. In 690, a totally organic and not prearranged petition movement took place across the country, demanding Wu become the emperor, because she was so great and all. Wu was like, "Oh my god, this is so inappropriate. I'm just a woman. But I don't want to disappoint you all, so I'll just be emperor for a little while. Ho ho," and declared herself emperor. And just like that, she became the first and only female emperor in Chinese history. After officially taking the throne, she declared a series of policies to promote women's rights. For example, women could now engage in a wide range of social activities and were free to date, marry, and divorce as they pleased. What's more, at weddings, the groom now had to kneel before the bride. She also appointed many women to important positions, quite unthinkable at the time. But as the saying goes, with great powers comes, great snacks? Oh, sorry. It's actually absolute power corrupts absolutely. and in her later years, Wu had become quite corrupted. She was paranoid about being overthrown, so she set up an informant network where anyone who knew anything about any crime, especially those involving people opposing her, could come to the capital and tell her about it. What's more, even if the accusation turned out to be false, the informant wouldn't be punished. Instead, they would be treated to a delicious meal. One could only imagine the disaster such a system would create. In the last 2 decades of her reign, countless people were tortured and murdered for allegedly committing treason. She also tried to pass the throne to her nephew, because like her, his name was also Wu. But there was so much objection to this that even Wu had to back down. Eventually, she summoned her third son, the one she had deported earlier, back to the capital and made him the crown prince. In the last few years of her life, Wu spent her days hanging out with the Zhang brothers, 2 male concubines she favored at the time. Wu liked to throw parties with the brothers in her harem, where they would gamble, sing, and make fun of the ministers Wu invited to the party. Apparently, Wu's favorite thing was to have the brothers put on clothes made of feathers and fake wings and have them fly around the room while playing a flute. She was already in her 70s, by the way. Unsurprisingly, the brothers took advantage of their status and persecuted those who opposed them. Once, they caught the crown prince's son, daughter, and son-in-law discussing their crimes in private and immediately accused them of treason. Wu ordered the 3 to commit suicide, even though the daughter was pregnant. Grieved and vengeful, the crown prince swore to end his mother's rule. In 705, the crown prince, with the help of the imperial guards, surrounded Wu's palace. They accused the Zhang brothers of treason and killed them on the spot. Wu was forced to renounce the throne and put under house arrest. She died a year later, at the age of 81. There's a giant tombstone outside her mausoleum, though there are no words on it. I guess she decided it was better to let history judge her story.